Riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성,
포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung is now in New York to attend the UN General Assembly. Eyes are now on the speech he will deliver to the 193-member body on Tuesday local time. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says there's no reason he and U.S. President Donald Trump couldn't face each other again, but only if Washington drops its goal of the regime's denuclearization, possibly suggesting that Pyongyang may be leaving the door open to reviving talks. U.S. President Donald Trump claimed the use of acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol and other widely used medications during pregnancy, can cause autism in children. But medical researchers are pushing back, saying there is no proven causal link between autism and exposure to acetaminophen in the womb. We begin in New York, where South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung is now kicking off his 5-day trip to the United States. Among the highlights is his first UN speech slated for Tuesday. Our senior presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
President Lee Jae-myung touched down in New York on Monday local time, opening his 5-day U.S. trip to attend the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. The general debate of the session runs from September 23rd to 29th under the theme Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. In line with that, President Lee will address the 193-member body chamber on Tuesday local time as the 7th speaker. On Wednesday, Lee will chair an open debate at the UN Security Council, a first for any South Korean president, as Korea assumes the rotating presidency of the 15-member body this month. Discussions will be centered on AI and international peace and security. A number of bilaterals are also scheduled, including one-on-ones with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and the leaders of France, Italy, and Poland to discuss bilateral cooperation, including on the defense industry. An official summit with U.S. President Donald Trump is not planned, though it remains to be seen whether there will be a pull aside. On Thursday, before he closes out his U.S. trip, Lee will host the Korea Investment Summit with U.S. financiers on Wall Street to encourage investment in South Korea.
As President Lee makes his debut on the UN stage, the highlight of his trip would be his UN speech slated for Tuesday, with the focus on the resilience of South Korea's democracy, his peace vision, and Korea's global contribution. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New York.
And continuing our coverage of President Lee's trip to New York, the president held talks with the head of the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock. The two agreed to work together to strengthen South Korea's position in the global AI industry. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
Turning South Korea into Asia's AI capital. That's the vision that President Lee Jae-myung and BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, agreed to pursue together. It was the focus of Lee's first appointment in New York on Monday, a meeting with BlackRock CEO and World Economic Forum co-chair Larry Fink.
Through this discussion, South Korea has taken the lead in establishing an Asia-Pacific AI infrastructure hub, positioning itself as a trusted base for global investors and companies.
According to Ha, Fink expressed strong interest in investing in South Korea's AI and energy infrastructure, two of the Lee administration's key future growth engines. BlackRock is spearheading global investment in these areas by launching the AI infrastructure partnership with Microsoft, Nvidia, and xAI. Those shared priorities took shape with the signing of a memorandum of understanding. The centerpiece is the creation of a hyperscale data center in South Korea, which can meet demand not only at home, but across the Asia-Pacific region.
Building this requires semiconductors, batteries, telecommunications, power, cybersecurity, and cloud technologies, combined with renewable energy generation, storage systems, and grid infrastructure. It will revitalize Korea's industrial ecosystem while giving Korean companies a competitive edge globally.
The MOU also lays the groundwork for a massive joint investment to support the APAC region's AI and renewable energy transition. While the exact amount will be decided once a joint task force is set up, the presidential office says the figure will be in the trillion won range. Later in the day, President Lee met with U.S. lawmakers, urging Congress to play a more active role in advancing South Korea-U.S. relations.
With diplomacy and the economy being the key themes of President Lee's visit, his first day in New York reflected just that. Now more spotlight will fall on Tuesday when the president takes part in this year's United Nations General Assembly High-Level Week. 송유진, Arirang News, New York.
Meanwhile, for the first time since U.S. President Donald Trump returned to office, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has expressed his openness to reviving talks. Experts told Arirang News the timing could be sooner than later, but the conditions remain as tricky as ever. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has signaled he is ready to talk again with US President Donald Trump, according to experts in Seoul, with a summit on the cards within a matter of weeks. In a speech to the Supreme People's Assembly, the North's highest political organ, Kim for the first time spoke out on the possibility of re-engaging with Trump. He said he still personally has good memories of the US president, alluding to their meetings during Trump's first term. Kim said there's no reason they couldn't face each other again if Washington abandons its goal of North Korea's denuclearization. One expert remarked on the timing.
I think he's simply ready. Victory's Day of the China. He also have a backup from not only Russia but also China, and he's ready for this some kind of confrontation or dialogue, negotiation with the United States.
After returning to presidency, Trump has expressed eagerness to revive North Korea diplomacy, which Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong notably did not rule out in her media statements. Now with a nod from Kim Jong-un himself, experts say the next Trump-Kim summit could be within several weeks, as the US leader is scheduled to visit South Korea to attend the APEC leaders meeting next month.
If President Trump were to lower the bar for dialogue with Kim, shifting the focus away from denuclearization toward arms control and tension reduction, then a summit could take place right after APEC, either at Panmunjom or at the Wonsan-Galma Coastal Tourist Zone.
Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Trump, in fact, floated the possibility of such an occasion during their first summit in D.C. last month. But once again, the question of denuclearization will continue to linger. In 2019, Trump and Kim's second summit in Hanoi broke down as the US leader called for a big deal to fully dismantle all of North Korea's nuclear facilities. Since then, Pyongyang has continued its weapons program and has growingly asserted itself as a nuclear state.
Kim Jong-un sent a message to Trump that he could meet the Trump but with some precondition. For example, United States has to stop the permanent halt of the ROK-US military exercise, and also the deployment of the strategic asset.
The key question is whether President Trump will accept Kim's demands. Trump has hinted at recognizing North Korea as a de facto nuclear state. The U.S. defense chief has echoed similar views, but the Secretary of State has maintained a firm commitment to denuclearization. Any Trump-Kim summit would therefore require reconciling these divisions within the U.S. administration.
South Korea's presidential office on Monday reiterated Seoul's support for the resumption of U.S.-North Korea dialogue. Regarding Kim's statements that denuclearization is impossible, the office emphasized that South Korea will continue efforts for a Korean peninsula free of nuclear weapons.
With the possibility of Trump-Kim diplomacy in the near future, experts say close coordination between Seoul and Washington is more critical than ever. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
So Kim Jong-un's comments on his relationship with Trump come as President Lee is set to deliver his speech at the UN General Assembly in New York. Now, for more on this, we're joined today by Dr. Christopher Goding, Professor of Political Science at Kookmi University. Professor Goding, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So President Lee Jae-myung is now set to deliver an address at the UN General Assembly in New York. Why is this so significant, and what kind of message should we expect from him?
Nothing of much substance, I'm afraid, because President Lee is in no position to make any bold statements. What we have now is a middle power, Korea, that used to rely on the US, and the US, as we know, under Trump's administration, is not as reliable as they used to be. So what I expect from President Lee probably is a consensual message of peace, maybe something to pave the way to further talks in a near future. The point I think here for President Lee is not to burn any bridges. Right now, South Korea needs to trade with China. South Korea cannot trust the US and still at the same time cannot lose the US support. So what I expect from President Lee, I think, is a very humanitarian speech emphasizing human rights and the like, most likely.
I see, and there's a lot of attention on what he'll say about North Korea, especially since it's the first time in 7 years, since 2018, that the North Korea is sending its senior official to the UN General Assembly. What does this tell us about Pyongyang's willingness to sort of actively engage in multilateral diplomacy?
Well, Pyongyang is for sure willing to engage, but maybe not on the terms we'd like. As my colleague, Professor Park Won-gon, argued in your previous report, now, paradoxically, North Korea is in a position of force because for the first time in decades, virtually, South Korea can count on actual allies in the region, in particular after the troops Kim Jong-un dispatched in Ukraine. So what I think this presence means above all things is the fact that North Korea is back on the international scene. And as North Korea's agenda aligns for the most part with China's and Russia, I think Kim Jong-un envisions it to be an opportunity to push for what North Korea has always wanted, that is trade on the one hand, economic opening, and on the other hand, maximal political isolation. And to this extent, I am not sure that North Korea's coming back on the international scene is good news for South Korea, at least to this extent.
Right, and just before leaving for New York, what President Lee said that he's willing to accept a deal where North Korea would freeze nuclear weapons production, and he called it a realistic alternative, and said what matters is restoring trust between the two Koreas. What's your take on this?
I think that's the perfect way to put it. It's an alternative. It's a realistic alternative. It is a second best solution. Realistically, hence realistic alternative, North Korea is not to give up on their nuclear program anytime soon. So if you want to negotiate, you never negotiate with friends, you negotiate with enemies by definition. So if you want to negotiate with somebody, there needs to be something to be put on the table. And so if it cannot be dropping this nuclear program altogether, it has to be somehow some sort of break, some sort of pause, some sort of slowing down even in this nuclear escalation. So I think this line of conduct that President Lee has chosen is moderate, it is efficient, or at least as efficient as it can be. Regarding how unpredictable both the US and North Korea are, each in their own right.
So the Korean government is sort of trying to ease tensions there, but North Korea's Kim Jong-un continues to take a hardline stance against South Korea and says unification is impossible. But he did say that he has good memories with President Trump, and he said dialogue could resume if the US recognizes Pyongyang as a nuclear state. So does this mean he's willing to talk with Washington?
I'm pretty sure Kim Jong-un's memories from this 2019 meeting are excellent, because what happened back then is that it brought back North Korea on the international stage. North Korea received a lot of international, in particular humanitarian help back then, and North Korea back then gave nothing in return. The main objective of Donald Trump at the time was to get North Korea to somehow stop their nuclear program, and they haven't. So to this extent, it's very understandable that Kim Jong-un somehow remembers fondly of these memories he made 6 years ago. No, I think that, of course, it is not impossible at all that Kim Jong-un and Trump are to meet up anytime soon. But in terms of denuclearization, I don't think there is nothing realistic to expect in that department, unfortunately. Trump wouldn't get Kim Jong-un to withdraw his nuclear program before. There is no reason to think that he could manage to achieve anything comparable now in a near future.
I see. I guess we'll have to see if they do engage in talks during Trump's second term. All right, Dr. Goding, thank you so much for your insight this morning, as always.
My pleasure.
South Korea's producer prices fell in August for the first time in 3 months, largely driven by a sharp fall in mobile phone charges after a major carrier introduced discounts following a data breach. The Bank of Korea said on Tuesday that the producer price index, a key gauge of future consumer inflation, fell 0.1% from July to 120.12. SK Telecom offered a 50% discount on August bills for more than 20 million users following a data breach incident contributing to the decline. Despite the monthly decline, producer prices were still up 0.5 from a year earlier, marking their 25th straight month of on-year growth. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump says taking Tylenol during pregnancy is linked to an increase in autism, despite no scientific proven evidence. He said the U.S. Food and Drug Administration will be notifying physicians over the use of it. Our An Sung-jin has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that taking Tylenol during pregnancy is, quote, not good, and that it is associated with the high risk of autism in children. Speaking from the Oval Office on Tuesday, alongside the Health and Human Services Secretary, the Food and Drug Administration Commissioner, and the Director of the National Institutes of Health, Trump said acetaminophen, commonly known by the brand name Tylenol, should only be used for high, unmanageable fevers.
So I think you shouldn't take it, and you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy, you shouldn't take it during the entire.
Trump, during his speech, claimed that autism rates have surged over 400% since 2000 and alleged a strong link between the use of Tylenol during pregnancy with the increased risk of autism. Tylenol is often used as a pain reliever for general fevers, and not treating a fever for pregnant women can be dangerous for both the fetus and the mother. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology refuted Trump's claim by noting that doctors across the country have consistently identified Tylenol as one of the only safe pain relievers for pregnant women, and added that Trump's announcement is not backed by the full body of scientific evidence and simplifies the complex genetic causes in children. The group further said there is no conclusive evidence for a causative relationship between Tylenol and autism. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in the UK, the Palestinian Mission in London raised the flag at a site that will become the Palestinian Embassy, following Britain's formal recognition of Palestinian statehood. Meanwhile, France has joined several Western countries in the recognition. On Monday in London, a ceremony took place outside the Palestinian Mission in Hammersmith, where Ambassador Hussam Zomlot raised the Palestinian flag and unveiled a plaque that read Embassy of the State of Palestine. Zomlot stated that the Embassy of the State of Palestine will be placed right behind in this building. This follows the UK government's announcement on Sunday that it would recognize Palestinian statehood. Up to now, the mission has operated without embassy status. Canada, Australia, and Portugal have also recognized Palestine's statehood, and France made its official declaration in New York. In response, the White House said that President Donald Trump disagrees with the U.S. allies who have declared recognition of a Palestinian state, stating that he believes it would be a reward for Hamas. In the United States, the Jimmy Kimmel Live show is officially returning to ABC. The show had been suspended indefinitely 6 days earlier, following comments made by Kimmel about right-wing activist Charlie Kirk's death. Disney's ABC announced on Monday that Jimmy Kimmel Live will resume airing on September 23rd, and that the decision was made after internal discussions with Kimmel and was not influenced by regulators or affiliate networks. The initial suspension came after Kimmel's monologue on September 15th, where he criticized supporters of Donald Trump for what he described as attempts to politicize Kirk's murder. His remarks sparked backlash from conservative commentators, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, and major network affiliates, including Nexstar and Sinclair, which pulled the show from various local stations. In response, hundreds of celebrities signed a public letter in support of Kimmel's right to free speech. In its statement, Disney acknowledged that Kimmel's comments were perceived as ill-timed and thus insensitive, but emphasized his right to express his views. American chipmaker Nvidia announced on Monday that it will invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI as part of a strategic partnership aimed at expanding its data center capacity. The plan includes deploying at least 10 gigawatts of Nvidia systems, which will involve millions of GPUs, with the first gigawatt expected to become operational in the second half of 2026. Under the deal, OpenAI will purchase data center chips from Nvidia, while Nvidia will acquire non-controlling shares in OpenAI. This investment will enable OpenAI to scale its infrastructure in response to the growing demand for large-scale AI models. Following the news, Nvidia's shares rose by nearly 4%. Finally, the world-renowned Pompidou Center in Paris, France, closed on Monday evening for a 5-year renovation, with reopening projected for 2030. The nearly 50-year-old modern arts museum is renowned for its multicolored exterior, exposed piping, and escalators, and attracts millions of visitors annually. The renovation work, to be led by Japanese architectural firm Muro Kusunoki in collaboration with Frida Escobedo Studio and technical partner AIA Life Designers, is estimated to cost approximately $542 million. Major renovation priorities include upgrading fire safety, enhancing accessibility, and cutting energy consumption by as much as 40%.
It's an autumn equinox today, and you can already notice slow changes in colors of nature. It's a cloudy day for most regions. Then rain will start in South Coast tonight, and rain clouds will expand nationwide tomorrow. This band of rain will continue in southern regions through Thursday. Rainfall totals are expected to reach up to 80 millimeters in the capital area. Other parts could see 10 to 60 millimeters of showers. Meanwhile, northern parts of east of Gangwon-do could see 5 to 20 millimeters. As you can see, rainfall will vary significantly. Temperatures will be similar in southern regions but higher in the capital area, topping out at 27 degrees here in Seoul, Gwangju, Jeju, both topping out at 28 degrees, with winds picking up on Jeju Island and on the south coast. The rain will gradually ease from the capital region and Gangwon-do early Thursday, so please keep an umbrella handy. Meanwhile, big daily gaps in readings will continue, so please take care.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
어렸을 때 아버지가 클래식을 좋아하셔서 자연스럽게 공연장을 이제 가족들이 다 같이 가게 되었는데 그때 포피아노 연주를 제가 실제로 가서 봤었는데 그때 이제 너무 멋있다 생각이 들어서 부모님께 피아노를 하고 싶다고 졸랐습니다. 저조차도 누군가의 연주를 보고 이렇게 피아니스트를 꿈꿔왔듯이 누군가도 제 연주를 듣고 다양한 감정을 이렇게 느꼈으면 좋겠어요. 어쨌든 저는 21세기 사람이니까 21세기 트렌드를 또 잃으면 안 될 것 같아서 간혹은 또 가요나 팝송도 많이 들으려고 노력하고 있고요. 그러다가도 또 이제 다시 클래식으로 돌아오게 되더라고요. 그냥 클래식 음악은 진짜 어떤 시대에 들어도 누구나 공감할 수 있다고 생각을 해서 그래서 클래식 음악이 제일 마음에 와닿는 것 같아요. 지나바카오 콩쿠르에서 특히 2라운드 연주가 저는 항상 기억에 남는 게 너무 무서웠어요, 사실. 한 음만 치는데 다음 음이 뭐였는지 기억이 안 날까 봐 너무 두렵더라고요. 악몽을 너무 많이 꿨었고 연습을 하는데도 불구하고 끝까지 안 되는 음악적인 패시지라든지 테크닉적인 패시지들이 있는데 그게 무대 위에서 정말 무의식적인 세계에서 갑자기 해결이 되는 경우가 있더라고요. 그랬을 때 이제 희열을 확 느끼는 것 같아요. 제가 지금 공부하고 있는 곡들, 즐겨 연주하고 있는 곡들이 사실 클래식 음악을 처음 접하는 분들에겐 익숙하지 않은 곡들이지만 지금 제 나이에 가장 잘 표현할 수 있는 음악이라고 생각을 해서 그런 레퍼토리를 준비를 하고 있는 거니까 같이 즐겨주시고 같이 공유해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% since rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million with this locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, September 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Brooke. Hello, happy to be here. Good to have you, and also Cheska's with us.
Yes, happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we step into the second day of the work week, the spotlight is shifting to New York, where the United Nations has just kicked off the 80th General Assembly. It's a milestone gathering that brings together leaders from around the world, not only to mark 8 decades of global cooperation, but also to debate the most pressing issues. And this year's General Assembly is expected to set the tone for international priorities in the months ahead. So what's on the agenda this year, Brooke?
Okay, so let me give you an overview. On September 9th, the 80th session of the UN General Assembly was declared open at the UN headquarters in New York by Annalena Baerbock, the newly elected president of the General Assembly. This year's theme, Better Together, 80 Years and More for Peace, Development, and Human Rights, set a somber tone. In her opening remarks, Baerbock called it no ordinary session and asked a rather sobering question to all of us. 80 years, longer than the average human lifespan. Normally, this would be a moment to celebrate, but are we really in a mood for celebration? I think that's a good question, because with long-running conflicts like what's going on in the Ukraine and the Middle East, these have been unresolved for quite a long time now. In addition to pressing environmental issues, the mood was more reflective than celebratory, because I think it underscores just how much work remains ahead of us. I think we can recognize that 80 years is a great accomplishment, while also looking to the future at the homework we still have to do.
I mean, there's, like you said, there's so much to be discussed. But is there one issue that you'd like to see discussed on the UN floor this year?
Well, I'm interested in the technological aspect. I think AI has been just expanding so rapidly, and I want to see how we're going to address it globally. I'm pretty interested in that.
And also, South Korea is expected to use the stage to highlight its positions on key global challenges. So what does South Korea's participation in this year's General Assembly look like?
So as of 23rd in New York, South Korea President Lee Jae-myung will attend the high-level meeting openings. And in his keynote address at the UN General Assembly, he will present the government's vision and policies on key global issues, including the Korean Peninsula and national security. Now, he's also expected to preside over an open debate of the United Nations Security Council in his capacity as its president.
So as you mentioned, there's a plethora of important issues that are on the table, from peace and security on the Korean Peninsula to climate action, sustainable development, and the digital economy, just to name a few. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more about what we're talking about today. The United Nations has played a crucial role for decades in maintaining global peace, promoting human rights, and addressing urgent challenges like climate change and economic inequality. And South Korea has also been an important part of this global effort, with many key moments in its modern history closely tied to UN initiatives and programs. Today on News Generation, we're going to take a closer look at what the UN actually does, explore how South Korea's history is connected to it, and highlight the role of South Korea and even K-pop stars in spreading the UN's message and values around the world. So as we just saw in the video, the UN General Assembly is marking its 80th year. From its founding in 1945 to today, the UN has stood as the only truly universal forum where nearly every country in the world comes together under one roof. Over the decades, it has witnessed historical speeches, landmark resolutions, and countless debates that have shaped the world that we live in now. And while the world has changed dramatically since its creation, the UN continues to serve as the stage where nations present their visions, voice their concerns, and at least in theory, work towards common solutions. So to start us off, Brooke, what exactly is the UN today, and how does this decades-old institution remain relevant in tackling the challenges of our time?
Big question. So the UN is an international organization that was initially created to prevent war and maintain peace. That is the simplest explanation. It was founded after World War II by the Allied nations with the aim of stopping future atrocities against humanity while also promoting global cooperation and peace. It officially came into existence on October 24th, 1945, and today it has 193 member states. Now, the UN is still relevant because it provides a unique global forum for nations to address shared challenges like war, climate change, poverty, and human rights, promoting peace, development, and justice through diplomacy, peacekeeping, and humanitarian aid, as well as technological issues like I mentioned earlier. And it is the only place where all countries can come together to cooperate on issues that are just too complex for any single nation to solve on their own.
So at its core, the UN was born out of the devastation of the World War II, with the mission preventing such a tragedy from happening again. But decades later, that mission continues to be tested in new ways. So beyond its founding mission of preventing wars, what role does the UN play today when it comes to resolving conflicts and improving lives around the world, Jessica?
As Brooke mentioned, I think it is a neutral ground that is sort of provides a safe discussion place for a lot of countries to actually come together. But other than that, when real conflicts do happen, the UN Security Council drafts resolutions and submits important issues to the General Assembly. And then what happens is they establish dedicated bodies to actually tackle these issues. These include protecting human rights, organizing relief and volunteer efforts. And a lot of active, very UN involvement has led to some very visible and positive progress, including but not limited to tangible and very visible progress in child hunger, ending poverty, and addressing climate changes. So there has been some very visible progress made, but also I think one thing the United Nations actually does, it is a brand. So once it is attached to an issue, it is very, very likely that the issue will raise awareness. And I think that is also the power of the United Nations that has gained over the last 80 years as well.
That's a great point. So the UN's work goes far beyond diplomacy. It's about improving people's lives, their health, education, and humanitarian relief. And even though many of us are familiar with the UN, there's still a lot that we don't know about its work and history. So to test our knowledge and to learn something new today, we put together a fun OX quiz for the panelists here on the history of South Korea and the UN. So I'm going to ask our panelists 3 questions, and they'll each give their answers before we reveal the correct one. So let's see who knows the most. And maybe we'll learn a few things along the way. So question 1, true or false? South Korea joined the United Nations before North Korea. Do you want to reveal your answers for this?
I know this one.
So the answer is actually false.
Yes!
Do you want to explain why?
So honest confession, I actually did study. Sorry, Brooke. I cheated just a little bit. But as a Korean, I must know this. So apparently, back in 1948, South Korea was recognized as the only legitimate government in the United Nations. But the application the following year was denied by the opposition from the Soviet Union. But the thing is that opposition lasted for over 40 years. And only in 1991, South Korea was admitted to the United Nations membership, which comes after North Korea. Surprise.
Very interesting. Kind of unexpected.
Learning something new.
I know. I did too, but it's very interesting, yes.
So question 2, true or false? The number of South Koreans working in the UN agencies is increasing. What are your answers for this?
I mean, I want it to be an O, but I'm really not sure.
You're not really sure about this?
I think yes.
So Brooke, you got this right. Can you explain this?
So I did actually know this even as a foreigner, and I think it's because of just the knowledge that Korea shifted from an aid recipient to a donor nation. So I think it logically follows that more Koreans would be working in the UN now. I want to highlight some notable figures that include former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the first female former Foreign Minister of South Korea, Kang Kyung-hwa. Other Korean experts are increasingly present in areas like climate change negotiations, disarmament, and international law. And I think that reflects the fact that even though Korea is quite a small country in terms of its size, it has increasing influence and a much broader role in global governance today than it has in the past.
It's always nice to see Korea represented in the global stage.
Yeah, it really
and also, last but not least, so the question 3. So true or false? International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies was proposed by South Korea at the UN. So what are your answers for this? So you say true.
I think yes, because Korea really cares about the air.
The sky.
They always talk about, even applications will tell you how clean the air is. So I think this is true.
ESG goals are a big deal for companies. So Cheska, you guys both got this right. Cheska, do you want to maybe explain the answer?
Absolutely, because as a Korean, I'm quite proud to talk about this. So back in 2019, Korea, the Blue Sky was adopted and proposed by Korea. It was co-sponsored by 22 other countries, but it's actually the very first United Nations commemorative day that was led by South Korea. So it is a huge pride for us, but also comes with huge responsibility. So it is very exciting, but I also think there needs to be a lot of work done, especially with climate changes and global warming. But I do hope to see a more clear sky and definitely bluer sky.
Yes, to see those too. And it happened quite recently. September 7th is the UN's International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. It's a day, like you said, proposed by South Korea to spotlight the global fight against air pollution. So we're going to talk more about this topic. And to learn more, we're going to speak with someone who actually leads the board of directors for a branch of the UN Youth. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Vasil, who leads the board of directors for UN Youth Australia. So hi, Vasil. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Hello, or should I say 안녕하세요? Thank you so much for having me.
We're honored to have you on the show. So what kind of activities are you and UN Youth currently involved in at the UN?
So UN Youth Australia is one of the largest youth-led organizations in Australia, and we focus on empowering young people to engage with global issues and work to increase awareness of the United Nations among young people. In Australia, we run a national model United Nations competition, youth conferences, and also international educational tours as well. Our flagship program, though, is the Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations. So for 26 years, we have worked with the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs to appoint one young person to represent youth voices at the United Nations General Assembly. So what is happening right now? The representative conducts a national consultation with young people to understand what the key issues are for Australian young people. In 2025, we've heard from 5,000 young people across the country. Those insights are presented at a speech at the UN General Assembly in their third committee, which focuses on social and humanitarian issues, ensuring young voices are heard on the world stage. So in short, our motto is young people driving meaningful change because we really believe in that.
Wow, it's really fantastic to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing. My question for you is, why do you think youth participation in the UN is so important?
So we all experience so many global problems at the same time, and they're very interconnected. Young people tend to be affected in a very unique way, but are often left out of the solutions because we're not in political roles. We don't tend to be in these spaces. So just being at the United Nations is really important for young people to be able to share their own unique view on how these challenges affect them. Honestly, the UN still feels pretty out of reach for most young people like myself. I felt that myself last year when I was at the General Assembly for 2 weeks. Even as a full diplomat, there were times where I wanted to be involved, but I was so confused by how complex the UN system is that I wasn't able to. So that's often how young people feel. And so programs like the Youth Delegate Program and programs that other UN agencies are working on at the moment are big steps in the right direction.
I think you're the very best person to talk about this because you have a lot of first-hand experience. But what do young people really want from the United Nations?
So this changes all the time because young people are not just one big group with the same ideas. But going back to my statement from last year, I called on three main things. The first thing was proactive global collaboration, which is what the United Nations was created for. We want to see countries working together to tackle the big challenges of the world. And it is important to keep building on summits and initiatives that the UN does year on year and make it clear to us that they actually make a difference. Making the UN more visible to young people is also really important. A lot of us don't know what the UN does. We don't really know what the Sustainable Development Goals are, or even the 2030 agenda, which is approaching. So the UN work needs to be easier for young people to find, understand, and engage with. And that's what we really want. But finally, as well, recognizing that young people are able to make change as well. Young people across the world, in Australia and I'm sure in South Korea, are already doing great work, are creating their own initiatives. Our organization is created fully by young people. So recognizing the importance of those initiatives and incorporating them into the work of the United Nations and the work of politicians is our best way of tackling some of our biggest challenges of now and in the future as well.
So I actually did model MUN when I was in high school, so I understand like how in the beginning it might kind of seem difficult to understand the system. So I mean, thank you so much for highlighting the importance of youths and the UN as well.
No, thank you. And yes, if I can leave you with one word, it's that our future depends on the future generations trusting that us and the UN can make a difference. So let's together work towards that.
I agree.
Really great.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just talked to someone who leads the board of directors for UN Youth, and they share some valuable insights into how young people are shaping conversations at the United Nations. So from the activities they're leading today to why youth participation matters, to what young people around the world hope to see from the UN, it's clear that the next generation aren't just watching from the sidelines, they're actively pushing for change. And speaking of voices that resonate with younger generations, the messages delivered by K-pop stars through the UN have also garnered a lot of attention, haven't they, Brooke?
Yes, and what a wonderful interview. I think that the next group I'm going to talk about would very much agree with everything that you said. K-pop supergroup BTS is who I'm talking about. They have addressed the UN General Assembly multiple times through their Love Myself partnership with UNICEF, which supports efforts to end violence against children and promotes kindness and safety both online and offline, which is just so important in this day and age. In 2018, RM spoke at the launch of UNICEF's Generation Unlimited, sharing his own struggles very earnestly and urging young people worldwide to find and use their voices. Then in 2020, during the 75th UNGA, the group delivered a virtual address about life under the COVID-19 pandemic, speaking very frankly about isolation and uncertainty, while also offering a message of hope and resilience. Life goes on. Let's live on. Then again in September 2021, BTS spoke again at the 76th United Nations General Assembly as the Republic of Korea's special presidential envoys for future generations and culture, delivering a speech encouraging progress on sustainable development goals. Our interviewee mentioned that not a lot of young people know what those are, so I think it's so important to talk about that. And I want to leave you with a positive quote that RM said during his speech in 2018. No matter who you are, where you're from, your skin color, your gender identity, just speak yourself. And what an inspiring piece of advice from a young person, right?
BTS definitely made an impression at the UN, but there are other K-pop stars that also did something to the UN?
Yes, and I think K-pop artists becoming sort of a leader in youth movement is also very positive. So a very popular girl group, Blackpink, is also on the lead. They served as an ambassador at the 2021 Nations Climate Change Conference, where they raised global awareness about the seriousness of climate change, an effort that earned them the Order of the British Empire. And also, I actually found this out while researching, the boy group 17 was also actually appointed as the Goodwill Ambassador for UNESCO. So there's a lot of K-pop stars that are taking lead on promoting and raising awareness for a lot of the global issues, which, as our interviewer mentioned, I think is really important because it is really up to the next generation, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. So it's not just BTS. Other K-pop groups like Blackpink and 17 are also using their global influence to amplify UN messages on climate and education. That really shows how deeply young people connect with these issues. And to get a broader perspective, we reached out to our viewers on the Arirang News YouTube channel and asked, as of 2025, what is the most urgent global issue for the UN and the world? So war was identified as the most pressing issue, chosen by 55% of respondents. This is followed by poverty and hunger at 25%, while 14% pointed to the climate crisis as the most urgent challenge. The remaining 6% highlighted other concerns, highlighting the wide range of global issues people are currently paying attention to. So these numbers show just how much conflict still dominates global concerns, but they also remind us that issues like poverty, hunger, and climate change remain urgent priorities for millions around the world. So to close off today's discussion, as the UN marks 80 years, what do you think will be the UN's most critical role as it looks to the future, Brooke?
Well, I think looking ahead, the top jobs for the UN are clear. They need to prevent and de-escalate wars. As our poll showed, that seems to be a very important issue in people's minds. Protecting civilians is important. They also need to unlock financing so that countries can actually deliver these basics that should be a human right, like education, healthcare, and clean energy. They need to turn climate pledges into real support, real action, and set practical guardrails for fast-moving technology like AI, so it doesn't go off the rails, right? Technology is amazing. It's wondrous to watch it grow, but we also need to keep an eye on it, right? And I think the UN 80 initiative aims to tie all of these issues together and streamline how the UN works. They're also trying to rebuild trust in multilateralism so that the UN system can work the way it's intended and deliver on its promises despite tight budgets and rising geopolitical friction. So a lot left to do, a lot to cover. I don't envy them. They've got a lot to do. I also want to say, like our Vasil said, our interviewee, that I think they need to make it easier and more accessible for young people so that they can feel like they're a part of things too.
Yeah. So as a young person, if you could direct UN funding to one area, is it one area that you would?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
That's tough. Honestly, for me, I would say ending violence against children. I think that's something that is just, it's very near and dear to my heart, and I want to protect children as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So that's where I would put all of my funds if I could.
And I would put my money in there too as well.
What about you, Cheska? What are your thoughts?
Everything Brooke said, but I also think I really want to be optimistic, but as technology advances and there are so many complications that are happening in the world, I do feel that global conflicts will continue, and in many, many different forms, and even forms that we might not have expected in present time. In that sense, I think United Nations has to take the lead in providing a very safe and neutral ground for all countries to actually come together, sit down and sort the issue out, because once these conflicts do happen, the number one way to solve it is actually open communication. And a lot of countries, because of their sovereign issues and national pride, sometimes it is very, very difficult to have an open and honest conversation. And as of now, in the world, United Nations is probably the only place that can provide that kind of safety and boundary. So I do hope they take on a very active role in initiating these discussions when conflicts do happen.
Agreed.
Right. So I look forward to see what's going to come out of this week's UN.
There's a lot going on.
So 80 years may sound like a long time, but for the UN, the work is far from over. So if anything, the challenges ahead show just how much the world still needs this global forum. And while the road ahead is complex, the UN's continued ability to bring nations together, give voice to vulnerable, and push for collective solutions is a reminder that progress, while it may seem slow at times, is still possible when the world works together. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Create Time with more stories and conversations. A big thanks to Brooke.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in. Also, Cheska.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Cafes. Step 1. Find a seat. Before ordering, find a seat. Laptop, ID, smartphone, jacket, whatever that can mark your territory. But no bites. It's a little too big. Step 2. Pick up. We do not ask or call your name. We call out, B69 고객님. The buzzer will vibrate when your order is ready at the counter. Wait, got your straw? Keep the top of the wrapper on. Doing this is more hygienic. Step 3. Cafe etiquette. If you need to use your laptop, find a seat next to a socket. No extra charge for using electricity. But if you're staying over 3 hours, how about ordering another drink or dessert? Step 4. Last bite standing. There's a mysterious custom in Korea. The last bite standing. When there's about 1 bite left of that cake, nobody will go for it. You might be tempted, but don't be hasty. Right before you get up, take the last piece, saying that you simply can't waste food, or just leave it. It will save a few calories. Did you survive at the cafe? Did someone behind the counter catch your eye? Go for the same drink every single day.
오늘도 아이스 말차 라떼 드실 거죠?
You might make an impression,